Hello, everybody. We're going to go ahead and give you our trivia question from last week. Our question was plumber comes from the Latin word for lead. What is the Latin word for lead? And the answer is plum bum. That's right. Plum bum. Don't know where in the world they got that from. I personally think that we should call all plumbers from now on plum bums. So if you have like a water leak or you got to have somebody come out and remove your toilet or something, you just call yourself a plum bum. They'll be on their way. All right, let's go ahead and jump into this and we will talk to you in just a momento. Whoosh! Hello and welcome back to Plant the Seed. You got Nathan and you got Cameron. Hi, Cameron.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
Uh, I'm very tired. I went to bed early and got more sleep than I'm used to, so that it has definitely ruined my day a little bit. I mean, the day's not ruined, but now I also have to go on a run, even though I'm tired. That's not going to be fun.
So I have to ask, what is early though? Because I know you've been staying up pretty late. So what is the early time for sleep?
I fell asleep at like 12:30,
Wow.
which is like the earliest I've fallen asleep in like 5 years. I usually go to bed at like 3, 4 a.m.
Oh my goodness. You know what? Actually, I think I did stay up until like 3 a.m. last night. I watched a movie with a friend of mine though. Like, because we were trying to figure out a game to play, and we were just not really interested in anything. I think we jumped on like Borderlands 3 for like maybe an hour, and after that, we were like, let's just watch a movie and go to bed. So that was kind of fun.
I haven't played Borderlands 3 yet, but I've played the second one because working at camp, uh, Riley and Ben Barry had
Mhm.
brought their, I think, PlayStation, and they had Borderlands 2 on it. And yeah, that was pretty cool. They're like addicted to the Borderlands games.
Nice. I tried Borderlands 1 when it first came out. And the problem was for me is that like when it first came out there was like nothing that stopped hackers from going in and modding the game. So you would jump into like a PvP, and for those who don't know what that is, it's like player versus player. So it's you versus other people. But I jumped in one of those servers and they had modded their guns so much that it just made the game unfun. Like it was awful. But 3 isn't too bad. 3 is pretty good. Storyline, me and a friend of mine both agreed it was a little, I don't know, it was okay. But it was fun. It's a fun game like if you don't want to spend a whole lot of time focused on something, you just want to run around shooting things. It works for that.
Yeah, I always like doing that. That's fun.
But speaking of games, I have a
Oh my
very
god.
I have an important question for you. And maybe some of the listeners will relate to this too, but I recently like was trying to find something to play, and I've been between two games at this point. Um, one of which is The Last of Us 2, which
Yeah.
I maybe I'll get that one then. I have played the first one. I loved it. The
It's the best game
storyline
of
is
all
fan.
time. I will fight anybody. It's the best game ever made.
I loved the first game, and now the second game is out, and I haven't bought it yet. Like I was ready to pre-order it, but some of the reviews I've seen are very back and forth. Like I have people like reviews where I've seen people say I love the first one and I despise this second one, and then I've seen the opposite where people said I didn't care for the first one but I love the second one. So it's very conflicting. So I am between The Last of Us 2 or people get really surprised that I say I've never played one of these, but Animal Crossing.
Oh yeah, they're good.
And I'm shook because I don't know which one to get. So, what are your suggestions?
So I was introduced to Animal Crossing back on the GameCube with just Animal Crossing, uh, and it's a great game. It's a very calm game. There's no like story. You just improve your house and the stuff in it, your character's look, and your little village. And then there's also the one on the Wii, which is City Folk. the 3DS one, New Leaf, then the new one, which I think is called New Horizons, which I hear is really good, but I
Yeah.
haven't played that one.
So like the one thing, so the big reason why I thought about getting it, like Animal Crossing, was at the very least, like it's one of those games that I hear you can, like, if you're bored, you can just jump on and have a good time, and then like jump off whenever you want to, and you don't really have to dedicate too much time to it.
But yeah, it
Plus,
doesn't require much of brain power.
right. Plus, like I can take it with me on the go. So like if I travel for work or whatever the case is, that's part of the reason why I bought the Switch. Is it's nice because it's a portable console that I can take on the go. But there's one thing. Like everybody who's described Animal Crossing to me has said like, "Oh my goodness, you can like catch some bugs and go fishing." And I'm like, that doesn't sound fun. So what's
Yeah,
the appeal?
you you can you can collect bugs and fish and sell them for a lot of money, or you can like frame them or put them in a fish tank and put them on display in your house. You can also find like dinosaur bones, like fossilized, and sell them to a museum. I don't know if you can do that in the newer games, but you used to be able to. And you can shake trees and have money bags fall out,
I wish.
which is pretty cool. Or if you're not lucky, just like a $100 coin instead of like $1,000 bag.
I've heard that this game, like basically how it starts off, like okay, so what everybody has told me is it's such a like relaxing game. It's so chill. It's so peaceful. You got to get it. Like top number one game right now. You got to buy it. And then they go in and they tell me, I'm like, okay, so describe it to me. And they're like, oh, well, you get like put on this island, and then like you like get this house, and you got like a mortgage, and you got debt, and oh my gosh, it's so peaceful. And I'm like, I have debt, and I can't say that I wake up in the morning like, yes, debt. Like,
Yeah. In the first game, I think it's like Tom Nook, you arrive in the city and you can't pay your mortgage, so you have to work for him. And you have to run errands for him, and then he eventually actually gives you a job and pays you. And then you just move up. And eventually you stop working for him, and you're just going to make your own money.
uh, I feel
But
like I just have to do it. Like,
they're fun games. There's also like a mobile version, but it's not the same. It's not that good. It's I don't think it's as extensive.
yeah, I think honestly, if I buy it, it's going to literally the reason why I feel like I'd actually dump money onto it is the thought that I can play it when I'm on a plane or like when I'm traveling. It just sounds perfect for like those moments. But if it wasn't for that, I can't say that it sounds interesting enough to like sell me on it. But then again, I might actually buy this game and then like sit there like, what have I been doing with my life? Why did I not buy this sooner? I don't know. We'll see.
They are addicting, but I mean, if you don't have it already, best game on the Switch is Breath of the Wild for sure.
Yeah, I don't have that one right now, and I have heard that.
I'm a
My
Zelda fanatic, so
my rub with the Switch, and it's gonna sound really stupid because I'm gonna spend the money for it anyways if it was a different console, but the games don't drop in price like hardly ever. They're always like $60, and I'm like, ugh. But then again, a new game drops on the PlayStation for $60, and I'm like, shut up and take my money. Like here you go.
yeah, it's like all new games are $60, and they take like a couple years for a game to go down unless they have like a deal or uh, it's like an old game. Like if you buy an Xbox 360 game on an Xbox One, it's like half the price. I
Right.
went on the Game Pass thing, and they showed like original Xbox games. I saw like Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, which is awesome, for like $10.
Hmm.
Like one of the best games ever for $10. On It's just take my money.
Right? Yeah, I don't know. Like, and that's kind of the problem why it's so difficult for me to like buy something for the Switch because it's a great console. But it's like any other console that has come before the Switch with Nintendo, for the most part, they were always like lower prices. I felt like you weren't buying top notch games for their consoles, so like the games reduced in price pretty fast. I felt like now it's like they're getting into like actual games that other consoles have, and their prices feel absurd. Like for example, Diablo 3 has been out for like
Oh,
years.
yes. Diablo 4 is coming out. I need it.
I'm gonna be so broke, but
Oh, so Gracie's like addicted to those games, and she was like, basically is forcing me to get the fourth one. It's like, you need to buy it, but I want to buy Last of Us 2 because sequel to the best game ever made. I don't know. Dilemma.
I don't even think Diablo 4 has a release date yet, though.
I think it
So,
was coming out like this fall. I don't
is
know.
it? I hope
I,
so.
so, I thought that's what I heard.
It's funny you should mention Gracie because I play with Micah, and both him and I are pretty addicted. We got pretty into Diablo 3 and then fell off of it a while back, but we're so ready for Diablo 4. But
Yeah, the third one is it's a bang. It's good.
in terms of like this dilemma I find myself, I feel like so that's everything with Animal Crossing, but now I've got to consider The Last of Us 2.
Oh, okay. So, as what you said earlier about people not liking it. So I won't spoil anything. I'm actually nowhere near the end of it. Only like 5 hours in, and apparently it's like 30 hours.
Whoa.
And people are saying that the story is trash. I saw 2 videos on YouTube. I didn't watch them because I need self control. I don't want to make myself angry on purpose. But because I know if I watch it, I'll just get angry. But the thumbnails were like, "The Last of Us 2 is trash. The story is trash." I'm like, what makes you think it's trash just because something happened in it that you didn't like? Neil Druckmann, the director, said before the game came out, you might not like this game. It's because it's an emotional game. Just because your feelings got hurt doesn't mean it's a bad game. That probably makes it a really good game because it actually made you feel something. And it's also the sequel to the greatest video game of all time, second only to, I mean, no, that's the other way around. The second best being Ocarina of Time, obviously.
Embarrassingly, I don't even think I played that one, but
Oh, I've played it about 10 times.
oh my
Every Zelda
goodness.
game. I'm addicted to Zelda. I love it.
Uh, so the 5 hours you said that you've seen of The Last of Us 2, because I've avoided pretty much everything other than reading articles and like quick reviews that don't give any type of like spoilers and don't really talk about the game too much. It's either I like it or I don't. I've not looked into like anything. I think maybe I've seen the trailer and it was like the original old trailer that was much shorter. I don't even think I've seen the new one. But for the 5 hours that you've seen of the game, would you recommend it?
Of course. I'd say the first 5 hours of the game. Nah, I'll even go as far to say the first 2 hours of the game alone are better than most games of the last 20 years. Like, it's Naughty Dog is the best at storytelling. They have Uncharted, they have Jack and Daxter, they have The Last of Us. They're just the best at storytelling, and people only get mad because they're PlayStation exclusives and they can't play it unless they buy a PlayStation.
Aw,
But
poor
or
babies.
like the second game, I hear most people's problem with it is that they didn't like how the story turned out. I'm like, that doesn't mean it's a bad story.
Sure.
Just because that's why you're not the one writing the game, because you don't know how to write a good story.
Yeah, and then
Because the professionals.
the one thing that they were saying is like, and again, I have avoided everything, and the only thing I heard was what the director was kind of saying about it, and saying that like some of the deaths that happen in the game are really kind of surprising, and
Oh
some
yeah,
players won't
that's
like
why
it.
people are getting mad. They're like, because certain characters die.
I love that though. I feel like that's what makes a great story is and it's surprising. Like, I don't like necessarily games where you know that the protagonist is always going to get out of a situation. I like those type of games that tell a story where it doesn't necessarily happen like that all the time. I think that's why like things like Game of Thrones was so popular. Is you never know like if your favorite character is safe. They could die off the next season.
Yeah, like in The Walking Dead, my favorite character was Glenn, and
Oh
he
yeah.
died. And I'm like, that doesn't mean it's a bad show. Granted, seasons 7 and 8 are the worst seasons, but I mean, just because your favorite character dies doesn't mean it's a bad story. It just means a a character. Just because it's a main character doesn't mean they're in, invulnerable to dying. They can still die.
Sure.
Like friggin' Star Wars Rogue One, every single main character died. All 5 of them.
It was so good though.
And it's one of the best Star Wars movies. And if you think otherwise, you clearly don't know what good storytelling is. Sorry, but it's amazing.
I don't know. Like, my thing is, I don't care if you kill off a protagonist in the story, but it has to be done in a way that like
Yeah,
isn't
it has to be done right. You can't
right.
just kill them for no reason. Whereas I haven't seen the end of the game, so I don't know the reason why the characters that I've seen have died. I don't know it yet. I'm sure there's a good reason, but that death that I saw surprised me, and I'm not even gonna lie, I almost cried.
Oh, I'm ready to cry. I want a good cry. Last time I cried was like Avengers. You see, there's a good story with some great characters who die off. You know, it can be done right and still be enjoyable. So,
Yeah,
all right. So, big hitter question. And granted, I'm probably going to get both eventually, anyways. But which one do I get first? The Last of Us 2 or Animal Crossing?
question: do you already have a PlayStation, or would you have to buy a PlayStation to get it?
I already have a PlayStation.
Last of Us for sure.
Okay. I think I'm going to do that.
But also, do you prefer story games or like arcade type games?
You know, I'm really like, I'm kind of like a weird type gamer. I'm very versatile with what I play, so it just depends on my mood at the moment. So
Yeah,
some
I
days,
feel that.
yeah, some days I want a hard hitting story, and other days I just don't really want to put a whole lot of brain power into it. So
Yeah. Some days I'll play Minecraft, and then other days I'll play The Last of Us and make myself cry on purpose.
now you don't. Now, do you have a PlayStation though, right?
Yeah, my brother has a PlayStation, and me and my little brother have an Xbox. So he has the first Last of Us game on his PS4. So I just,
Okay.
when he's not home, I go in and I play it.
Maybe I'll buy I'll buy The Last of Us 2, and then we'll get coffee, and you can come over, and both you and I can experience The Last of Us 2 together, and laugh and cry,
I don't think there would be a lot of laughing.
and just tears, all tears.
Yeah, it's just crying. And like the reason that The Last of Us 1 is the greatest game of all time is because, I mean, obviously the story itself is good, but it's nothing like necessarily unseen. Like we've seen really good stories before, but I think it's the best that a story's ever been paced. Like there's such a perfect balance of emotion and action. Like Joel and Ellie will be in the middle of talking, and then some fireflies will walk in the room, and you got to fight them. So it's like they give you good story, but they don't give you too much at once. They break it up with pieces of combat, so it's not just an overload of emotion. And pretty much every other game ever made has not done that. It's the only game I've ever even seen, let alone played, that paces a story with action so well. It's beautiful.
I'm so happy. I'm excited. Okay, so as soon as we're done, I know what I'm buying, and I'll install it, and maybe I'll stream it so that you can watch me play and hear me
Oh
cry.
yes, I will watch.
Awesome. Well, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and wrap into our segment 2 here. We're going to try something a little different. We're going to talk a little bit more of like an actual topic rather than like a story. But you'll see. It's new. It's different. You're going to like it. You'll love it. So,
Love it.
With that being said, let us know down in the comments of wherever you're listening to this. Which one have you played? Have you played Animal Crossing? Have you played The Last of Us 2? Which one do you prefer? Let me know. Do you like The Last of Us 2? I haven't played it. If you've played it and you got a comment, it could be a fun discussion. So have at it. With that, everybody, we're going to go into our segment 2, and we will talk to you when we get back. Wish! Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Plant This Seed. We're going to talk a little bit more so on like a general like topic, and we're going to tie in like different Bible stories with it. But here's just kind of a quick summary to kind of give you an idea of where we're going. But we've been talking about David a bit lately, and during one of our discussions that like we were having at our church, we talked about how David's role in the war between Israel and the Philistines wasn't even as a soldier. Like, he's the youngest of his brothers. He's not necessarily out there meant to be on the battlefield. He was more of like an errand runner, almost like the lunch boy in a lot of ways.
Yes.
But Riley in one of these weeks was talking about David and was kind of mentioning this, and he mentioned something that I thought was kind of interesting. Said that David and others may see David's role as small compared to those in the war. But if the soldiers didn't eat, they'd be too weak to battle. And I think we as people are guilty of this when given an opportunity to serve God. We sometimes see the calling as being too small when compared to like other people. Maybe it's because we think it's too small. We can sometimes just not decide to do it at all. So I thought it'd be kind of cool to talk about this idea because I'm guilty of this, of getting opportunities from God to serve that I look at it and I think that seems too small. Why would I use the time for it? And there's been times where I've decided to just follow, and that's kind of reaped a result. And there's been times where I've just decided it was too small and I just didn't. And in a lot of ways, that gives a different result. So, Cameron, I thought this would be kind of fun to kind of discuss and talk about. But to kind of like spearhead or jump right into it, have there been times where you've been given an opportunity by God to do something and decided not to because you thought it was too small?
Yeah, I definitely, when somebody presents me with an opportunity like to help out with something and it's not what I had in mind, or it's like, let's go pick up sticks for this neighborhood. I had more in mind, like, let's go hand out Bibles to the homeless, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't typically enjoy doing like the small stuff. So sometimes I feel like I just want to walk away and say, yeah, this is a waste of time. We're not actually helping anybody. We're just picking up sticks, cutting grass. But then I realize that when we help out communities, even if it's not talking about God, they can see that we're good people and they'll be more willing to talk to us and hear what we have to say. So I just suck it up and do it anyway.
Sure. Here's maybe a follow-up question to that, but I guess like in those times where you see something that's too small or you think it's too small, why do you feel like that task is too small? If that makes any sense.
Yeah, because I feel like because God is so big and powerful, like the only way I'm gonna help Him is by doing big and powerful things like being a missionary or a pastor, rather than like talking to one of my friends like, "Hey, you want to go to this afterglow at my church?" But I mean, that's a good thing to do, and you should do it. You should bring your friends to church. But in the grand scheme of things, it seems small, but it's really a good thing to do. So I have started trying to do it more.
Yeah, I think your answer to that was awesome because I don't even think I thought of it in that way of why I look at some task as being too big or too small. And I think you had a great point that, yeah, you serve this God that seem or is, this huge figure, all powerful and stuff like that. And to think that you're getting tasked with something that to us seems so small. in comparison to the God that we serve. I guess maybe it's more so like a misconception of how God uses things, where we think, oh, this seems too small for the big God that we serve, and so we just choose not to do it. But I mean, I'm guilty of doing that too, where whether it's picking up sticks or when I was a kid, I had different opportunities to work with children's programs, and I always thought that that was pretty small in comparison to what it seemed like other people were doing. People who were called to be a pastor, people who were called to be a missionary, and there weren't always opportunities or times where I took those. And the times that I didn't take those, I really missed out. You know, I missed out on being able to see God take the small thing and do these huge miracles because we do serve such a big God. Plus, they were so small. It would have taken me like 5 minutes to do for God to use those 5 minutes and do something that would have affected somebody for years down the road. Which I think kind of brings me into this next kind of idea that I was kind of throwing around. But another Bible story that I thought of when it comes to like God using something that seems like a small action, but then makes this huge purpose out of it, is the story with the boy with the fish and loaves, where, you know, his actions of being willing to sacrifice his lunch ended up feeding like thousands of people with even extras after the fact. And all he did was give, you know, his food to Christ, and Christ multiplied that in this huge way. So I think that our choices either do, do or not do something will oftentimes will affect like others. So even though we may choose not to do the small thing, that can still have an effect on other people. So, for example, if David said that bringing food for the soldiers was too small and decided not to, like he just was like, nah,
Oh yeah.
you know, those soldiers are going to die or be too weak to actually go into battle. Same thing with this boy. If he refused to share his lunch, thousands would have been left hungry. So with this kind of mindset, what are some times you did, like you actually did do the small thing, and what was kind of the bigger result out of that?
I'd say like a very small, like on a person to person basis. I asked one of my friends. It's the only person I've ever asked to come to church with me, and they actually came. And it was only once. And we went to Detroit as like a senior small group thing,
Mm-hmm.
but we weren't seniors at the time. We were juniors. But anyway, we went to Detroit and walked around, and then we had some food, and we sat down and we talked. And he is now, well, he already believed in God before, but he was like not sure of the way to go about it.
Sure.
And now he's much like me. We both believe it wholeheartedly. We just have some like sin problems
Sure.
where it's more of a acting on it than believing. But he, not necessarily because of me, but I guess I helped him figure out what he believes, because he was more agnostic than anything.
Sure. And I mean, if you go back and you think about what could have happened in that same situation had you just not been willing to take that step of inviting him to church that first time, that may have never happened. So, one of the things that I was given an opportunity to do when I was like I think I was like 12 years old is when it kind of first came up. But God had given me an opportunity to go and kind of help kids ministries. So at the time I wasn't teaching or anything, but I was just kind of there to help watch the kids and make sure that everybody was taken care of. And, sometimes I helped put together games or set up the lessons and stuff like that. And in the back of my mind, I always felt like that was small. Like I wasn't doing these big things, but I was doing something at least for God. And now, years down the road, I see how having an opportunity to work in those areas, how those kids were impacted by the adults who were willing to go and be a help to them or be an encouragement to them, and how their lives have been impacted from those actions. to see how God can still use those to do these big things. A couple other times, just asking somebody to come sit next to you at church, I've done that on a couple of occasions. Seems so small, but for those people, in terms of like not knowing how God can take a small action and do huge miracles, to you it might seem really small. To that person, it might be exactly what they've been praying for. It might be exactly what they've been asking God to provide, is a friend that just notices that they're alone and takes the time to pull them aside and just sit with them during a service or whatever the case is. So don't ever think that those things that God brings up that seem too small are too small for you to actually go in and do, because if you don't do it, you could also negatively have an effect on somebody. You may be the way that God is trying to use you for big things, and for you it seems so small, but for somebody else it's going to be a lot larger, like a bigger, experience. Cameron, kind of going off of that point, has there ever been like a time where somebody has done something for you that, while for them may have seemed small, for you was like exactly what you needed?
Oh yeah. It's hard to think of like a specific example, but I think like my orchestra teacher, Mr. Parks, what a G. He gave me like the confidence to, I guess, ask to be in the vintage band, because I had no interest in joining the vintage band. And one time Brad and I sat down and started talking about it. And the only reason I went to the audition is because my orchestra teacher at school told me I should, or I would regret it. And I think I definitely would have regretted it, because being in vintage is probably one of the best things I've ever done.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I think that's so, for your orchestra teacher might have been like just 5 minutes of their time to mention that, and for you has turned into, this bigger opportunity to be able to serve God in a way that you've been gifted an ability to do. So, for myself, a lot of the adults at the church that I used to go to took special time and effort to talk to me at some points. And had those people not taken those time to come and talk to me, or, just be a friendly person and stuff, while it might have seemed very small to them at the time, like had a huge impact on who I became in the future. Because, I went from being this really depressive, very high anxiety type person to, having those people who took the time out, and God using that to grow me to be more loving and a little more patient and a lot more kind. It's those little the things that seem like tiny acts that are still God asking you to do something. And you don't need like a huge ton of skills or a huge load of education to be able to do that. Everybody can take the time out to just be kind and nice to someone. Pick up some sticks. If you pick up those sticks, somebody else doesn't have to pick up those sticks. So who knows? Maybe you help prevent, somebody 60 and older, whatever the case is, from having to do that because you went and did that for them. And that is a huge impact on those people.
Yeah, and like working at Chautauqua, the current executive director, Chad, he's like super, super big on appearance of the camp.
Mm-hmm.
And I do see why, but at first I did not. Like why he's so strict with landscaping and making sure the campus looks awesome, and why Missy Vaughn, the landscape lady who is in charge, who's I think like 70 or something, I don't know. She's actually retiring this year. We always help her out and do the small things like picking up sticks, clearing an entire half of campus from weeds, which is tedious because the campus is huge.
Sure.
But doing small stuff like that can make the campus look better, make people feel more comfortable being there, and also help Miss Yvonne, the elderly woman, from having to uh, bend down and pick up hundreds and hundreds of sticks. It helps her out. It makes people feel comfortable, and it's a nice thing to do. But obviously, you don't have to pick up sticks. You can do other small stuff that doesn't require physical activity.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about this on on the podcast a lot. It requires an action. Like you can't just think about doing something and think that it's going to get done by somebody else all the time. If you see an issue or you see something that you can take an action and help out, even if it is just helping to pick up sticks, I think it's a good thing for us to go ahead and take those steps to do something positive because no change is ever going to come if you're not taking some kind of action in any situation in life. I had an opportunity. I went out and mowed my lawn like a couple of weeks ago or something. And after I had mowed it, I don't know what it was. I looked at my neighbor's lawn and like their grass was pretty tall and stuff. And I had already had the mower and I was like, oh, well, I guess I could probably mow their lawn to help out. And I sat there for like the longest time debating in my head of whether or not I wanted to go mow their lawn. And I almost put my lawnmower away because I was like, no, that's weird. I don't want to go mow their lawn and stuff. And I finally just got to a point where I was like, okay, well, maybe this is God telling me, like, go and do something, like, go do something nice. And so I got the lawnmower back out and I pushed it over and I just went and did their lawn for them and then put it away. And just that opportunity to do something that in my mind at first was like, oh no, I don't want to. And it seems kind of weird because of taking the opportunity to do some action to help out a neighbor. I've had opportunities now to talk to them a little more and stuff. It hasn't necessarily become an opportunity to witness or anything, but just taking the time out to do that was this small, I guess you could say, in some people's minds, it's like a small act of kindness for somebody else that God can use to do great things. So, there's an opportunity if you're looking for things to do for somebody else and you happen to be out mowing the lawn, look at your neighbor's lawn, the front lawn, see if, do they need some help?
Yeah, my brother and I were shoveling snow back when it still snowed, and I had to correct my little brother because he would like take the snow from our driveway and throw it onto the driveway of our neighbor.
Oh no.
So I shoveled their entire driveway and picked up like all the trash in their yard because my brother decided to they had about twice the amount of snow as before because he put like all of it over there.
Oh no.
So I did a solid for my neighbor and, shoveled the snow, which took about an extra hour. So that was a good act, but I was pretty mad at my brother.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. If you just, like, if we as people just kind of open our eyes and look at the people around us, you can find, like, if you're saying you don't necessarily, not you, Cameron, but, if we in general say things like we don't see places where we can be used by God or we're making those kind of comments, if we just open our eyes and look around for a while and see where there's opportunities all over the place. And they're usually not super hard for us to do. So I guess that's my challenge for myself and my challenge for everybody listening. Take some time to look around you and see if your neighbors need something or see if there's something in your community that may seem small, but could make a big difference. And together you can start to make, God can really use that too. So kind of to close out the segment too and get into your favorite segment, I got like one more kind of question, and it's maybe something that is worth talking about even more so in another episode too. But, it's no secret that as people, we tend to look at what others do and to either judge those people for not doing more or judge them for doing too much or judge God for not giving us more or judge God for giving us too much or judge ourselves based on other people. And I mean, this goes on and on and on and on and on. Like, we live in this society that is constantly judging something. It doesn't even matter what, it's all over the place. But why do you think we have such a judgmental mindset, and how do you think we can change that?
Yeah, I think that people can be judgmental towards somebody that's like not doing enough because they feel like they're superior and that they're doing everything that they can possibly do. So or maybe some people they feel like they're doing so much so that when they see other people not trying as hard, they get offended. So they're like, "You suck." Or on the flip side, maybe the other person is being, I guess, super extra and doing everything so they feel lesser than, so they judge them to feel better about themselves. But usually, I think either way, when you judge somebody, it just highlights what's wrong with you. It's like you judging somebody else affects you more than it affects them because it just shows what kind of person you are.
Yeah, I like how you put that. I mean, I think it boils down to, like you said, if we were to label a word on that kind of concept of thinking about just yourself, I mean, it goes back to pride and self-centeredness. You
Oh
know,
yeah,
it
people are so
and
prideful.
yeah, well, and it's a matter of like, I think we as a society have to keep in mind, especially as other Christians, we have to keep in mind that if God's giving us opportunities to do more, it may be that we've built a relationship up with God over that time period or over a set of time where God feels comfortable enough at our relationship with Him to be able to give us more. And that's not going to be everybody right off the bat. You know, everybody has a different personal relationship with God, and everybody has a different personal calling from God to do certain things. So if you feel like you're doing too much or God's called you to do too much, I think that there's a certain level of comfort that you can feel with your personal relationship with God, not in a prideful way, but knowing that God is comfortable enough to give you those set of things for your life. But that's not necessarily going to be the set of things that He gives to everybody. Um, you know, Rather than be in a society of judging other people because they're not doing exactly what we are, I think maybe we need to, like, it's a change of mindset. Like, rather than expecting that everybody's going to do the same thing, acknowledging that God uses people in different ways based upon what He has set for them, and going to those people and trying to help them become the person that God has intentions for them to be. That goes from, oh, that person's not doing something that I feel like they should, to how do I help that person achieve what it is that God has specific for them. So it's like a mindset change, I think.
Yeah, I think the reason we judge people is just because our mindset is not a Christian mindset. Because obviously Christians make mistakes, obviously, but I feel like if you try to think more like Jesus does, then you wouldn't be so judgmental and you would learn to understand people more.
Yeah. And now, I think there's another side of this, though, too, that can be said that while, yes, other people need to be less judgmental of other people, I think we need to be less judgmental of ourselves, because I feel like that can be the same concept of that pride. If we're judging ourselves based upon other people, or we're so worried and infatuated with who we are, we start to become even prideful in our own way towards ourselves. Um, you know, I feel like somebody who, feels like maybe God isn't giving them enough, maybe open your eyes and take a look at, are you even taking the opportunities that God is giving you? Because, here's kind of a controversial thing, and I'll just throw it out there. Theoretically, if everybody was working for God, there would never, ever, ever, or should never be a church that sits there and says, we need additional help here, here, and here, here, and here, who have a ton of members and none of the other members are willing to fill that space. You know, if we were all collectively working together and doing what it is that God had called us to do, and that is to love God and love others and find those opportunities to serve, if there's little small things that the church needs help with, if everybody was doing what God had directed them to do, we wouldn't have a problem with people feeling necessarily overwhelmed, because we would be working together as a collective voice of God, as a collective team working for God to accomplish the will of God and pushing, God's will forward. So just as much as I think it's wrong for us to judge other people, the people who are being judged are also could be wrong if they're not necessarily taking the opportunities to go and work for God either. So I think it's a balance. I think everybody has to be on the same role. Everybody has to be on the same page. And here's the ultimate, I guess you could say, like, here's the ultimate way we can change that, at least in my opinion, is God needs to be the focus. We need to pull out the look at me and how much I do, or look at me and how much I don't get an opportunity to do, and start looking at, here's God. What is it I can do for you, Lord, to progress your plan forward and get out of that prideful, self-centered mindset and put it where it's supposed to be? But with that heavy load, let's go ahead and get into our segment 3. It's Cameron's favorite segment.
Trivia.
I found this trivia question. I didn't even know this was a thing, and I thought this was really cool. But
you know me so well. I love film.
Yes, so I thought you would like this one. I don't know if you've ever heard of this. I took a film class. I'd never heard of this before. But do you want to go ahead and read the question?
Okay, so I won't freak out. I am a film nerd, so get a little excited. But in a film that came out in 1960, is the first American film to actually ever show a toilet on screen, and also the first one to have the sound of a toilet flush. What is this movie? It's a very famous movie, probably one of the most famous movies of all time. Obviously, I won't say what it is, but is it more famous for its beautiful story, or because of the toilet? The world may never know.
What's so crazy is, so I looked up some articles on this film after I saw the fact, because I wanted to fact check the fact, because I was like, really? That's crazy. Not only did I ever think to myself, when was the first toilet put onto a movie screen? Oh, nor, when did it first flush on a TV screen? But why this film became so popular, I was reading that one of the reasons why is because in a lot of ways it kind of pushed the envelope on what was seen as being appropriate in films at that time. I never thought that a toilet on screen could be scandalous. Oh my goodness, they poop.
People poop.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, it became it became a pretty popular film for not just being a great film, but because it pushed the envelope on some things like showing a toilet on screen. Who knew?
Yeah. Have you ever seen the movie?
I have seen clips of this particular movie. Now, I have seen other movies by this writer, and I will start to give things away if I go any further than that. But
quite a famous person.
Yes. So I've seen other movies by this writer, and it makes sense because I feel like he kind of pushed the envelope on a lot of things, and that's why his films became so, I think, popular and so kind of iconic when it comes to film theory and camera motions and stuff like that. So it doesn't surprise me that this particular director or this particular writer would have pushed the envelope by putting a toilet on a movie screen. Now we can see toilets all the time. So thank you. So but let us know what you think that answer is. Think about it, and we will give you the answer to that next time when you join us on Plant the Seed. But until next time, remember to be different, do different.